Before anyone saw the danger, he smelled it. A narrow canyon, a silent village, and a dog named Tango who did what no human could. When bullets rained down and soldiers were trapped, he vanished into the dust, not to run, but to fight. What happened next would turn him from a loyal companion into a legend. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Now let's jump into the story. The heat over Brindle Creek Training Facility felt like a heavy curtain. The sun bore down on the wide, dusty fields, shimmering off rows of chain-link fences and metal containers. Dust clung to boots, skin, and lungs alike. It was here on this sweltering afternoon that Private Jonas Wells first laid eyes on Tango. Tango wasn't just any dog. Sleek and alert, the Belgian Malinois moved with quiet confidence, his short coat shining like polished bronze. His ears stood tall, always listening. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, didn't wander. They locked onto things, people, scents, sounds, with the kind of focus soldiers were trained for but rarely mastered. Jonas wasn't a hero, at least not yet. He was young, still getting used to the weight of his gear and the sharp edges of military life. The quiet recruit had volunteered for the military working dog unit, not knowing exactly what to expect. But something about the idea of working with a dog, something alive, something loyal, had drawn him in. His commanding officer said, "Dogs don't follow orders out of fear. They do it out of trust." Jonas liked that. Sergeant Lee Moran, a seasoned dog handler with a face like weathered leather and a heart that beat to the rhythm of duty, was assigned to train Jonas. Moran had seen action overseas, and his partner, Tango, was already a legend on base, the dog who once sniffed out a hidden explosive in a simulation none of the trainers had planted. He was more than trained. He was intuitive. "Wells, meet Tango," Moran said, tossing Jonas the leash with a smirk. "Try to keep up." At first, Tango seemed indifferent. He didn't bark or wag his tail. He simply looked at Jonas, measuring him. Jonas knelt down slowly, holding out his hand. Tango sniffed it, then looked away. It wasn't dislike, and it was more like waiting. Waiting to see what kind of partner Jonas would be. Training days were long. Sunrise meant obstacle courses, scent tracking drills, and detection exercises that tested both man and dog. Jonas learned that Tango could detect a scent buried 2 feet beneath gravel, differentiate between over a dozen explosive compounds, and track a human scent across 2 miles of woods. What shocked Jonas most was that Tango never seemed tired. Focused, calm, and calculating, Tango didn't just react. He thought. It wasn't all clean-cut drills. On their second week, during a routine training walk, something strange happened. They passed a maintenance shed. Tango stopped, ears twitching. Jonas hesitated. "Come on, buddy," he said gently. But Tango didn't move. His body stiffened. He gave one sharp bark and turned toward the shed. Moran, watching from a distance, frowned and ran over. A quick sweep of the area revealed a small stash of expired flares and leftover training dummies, enough to cause concern. "Well, I'll be," Moran muttered. He's never wrong. That moment stuck with Jonas. It wasn't that Tango had found something dangerous. It was how. No panic, no noise, just quiet certainty. From then on, Jonas listened when Tango signaled, really listened. As the weeks went by, a bond began to form. It started in small ways, a gentle nudge from Tango when Jonas was frustrated, or a silent sit beside him during water breaks. Tango began to follow Jonas with more trust, ears perked when he gave commands, eyes locked when he spoke. They trained harder, faster, and better together. One evening after drills, Jonas stayed behind to clean the kennels. He talked to Tango while scrubbing out food bowls, telling him about his hometown, about his mom's cooking, and the old Labrador he grew up with. Tango listened, or at least he didn't leave. That was enough. Deployment orders came just 2 days later. The unit was heading to a conflict zone overseas. The mood shifted quickly. Laughter turned into quiet conversations, and goodbye calls replaced casual texts. For Jonas, the thought of going into a real war zone was overwhelming. But the moment he saw Tango waiting by the truck, eyes calm, tongue lolling slightly, some of the fear melted. On the transport plane, Jonas sat with his hand resting lightly on Tango's back. The engines roared, but he found comfort in the steady rise and fall of the dog's breathing. Tango was calm as always. That helped. Their first steps off the plane were met with blistering heat and a sky that stretched forever. The base was surrounded by mountains, beautiful but dangerous. Jonas had never felt so far from home, but beside him, Tango stood tall, already sniffing the dry air, eyes moving like radar. That night, as Jonas lay in his bunk, the distant sound of gunfire echoed across the hills. He stared at the ceiling, wide awake. Then he heard a soft shuffle, felt the brush of fur against his hand. Tango had moved closer, curling up beside his bed. It was a simple act, but in that moment Jonas didn't feel like just another nervous recruit. He felt like someone Tango trusted, and maybe, just maybe, he could live up to that trust. The mornings in the desert came fast and hard. Before the sun could rise, the camp buzzed with the low hum of generators, the clink of boots on gravel, and the thick silence that often came before a mission. Jonas Wells zipped his vest, checked his rifle, and glanced down at Tango. The dog was already alert, ears twitching and eyes sharp, tail still like a coiled spring. He was ready. He was always ready. The assignment sounded simple enough. A patrol through an abandoned village a few miles outside the base. But even the simplest missions came wrapped in shadows. The village had been empty for weeks, maybe months. That didn't mean it was safe. Captain Rowan Dyer, the leader of their unit, stood by the transport truck, scanning a map. He didn't smile much, and when he did, it never reached his eyes. He was good at his job, smart, quick, and serious. Jonas respected him, but everyone knew the captain carried a wall around himself. "Stay sharp," Dyer said, folding the map and nodding toward the village. "Anything feels off, say something, especially if Tango says something." The small team moved out, boots kicking up dust as they walked in staggered formation through the dry valley. Jonas held Tango's leash short, watching his movements. More than the road. That's what Sergeant Moran had taught him, trust the dog. Trust him like you'd trust your own instincts. The village appeared slowly over the next rise, sun-bleached and silent. Sand-colored houses with broken windows stood like ghosts, their walls crumbling and their doors hanging on rusted hinges. Goats bleated in the distance, and a thin wind whistled between buildings. "Clear so far," came the voice of Lieutenant Kara Linden, walking a few paces behind Jonas. She was the team's medic, smart, calm, and always carrying an energy that softened the hard edges of deployment. She was one of the few who talked to Tango like he was more than a tool, slipping him scraps of jerky when she thought no one noticed. They reached the main street and slowed. There were no signs of life, but that was the problem. It was too quiet. Even abandoned places usually had noise, birds, insects, stray animals. Here the silence was heavy. Tango walked with his nose low, sniffing each step of ground. His ears twitched, his tail stiffened. Jonas felt it. Something had changed. Tango stopped, frozen mid-step, his entire body locked like stone. His eyes fixed on a pile of bricks beside a collapsed wall. Jonas's heart skipped. He knelt, whispering, "What is it, buddy?" Tango gave a low, soft growl, so quiet it barely reached Jonas's ears. He nudged the rubble, then backed away quickly, staring at Jonas with intensity. "Hold up," Jonas called out, raising his hand. "Tango's picked something up." Captain Dyer didn't argue. He waved his hand. "Secure the area. EOD team up front." A bomb tech named Harris came forward with slow, careful steps. Time seemed to stretch. No one moved except Tango, who panted quietly beside Jonas, eyes still locked on the pile. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Finally, Harris stood up holding a small handmade explosive. Simple, but powerful. If triggered, it could have taken out the front of the patrol. Could have fooled anyone, Harris muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. Not this guy, though. He nodded at Tango with something close to wonder. The squad breathed easier. Relief came in waves, nervous laughter, back pats, and quiet thanks. Jonas knelt and scratched Tango behind the ears. You did it again, pal, he whispered. Tango licked his hand, tail wagging just once like a secret handshake. Word spread quickly. Back at base that night, Jonas found a small note taped to his bunk. You've got a real hero on your hands. Keep listening to him. No signature, but he had a feeling it was Lieutenant Linden. As the days passed, the village patrol wasn't the only time Tango spotted danger. On a later mission, he stopped them just short of another hidden threat. This time, a buried wire, leading to a pressure plate. The pattern was clear. If Tango paused, everyone else did too. He wasn't just a detection dog. He was a warning system with a soul, and he started to become more than a member of Jonas's team. He became part of the family. The guys would give him ear rubs during downtime. Even Dyer gave him a rare nod of approval. I sleep better. Knowing he's on our side, the captain once said almost to himself, but even with Tango around, the danger never really left. Rumors started spreading about a group of enemy fighters regrouping in the mountains. Locals who once offered small nods of kindness had grown distant. A boy named Zarif, who used to bring them water, stopped coming altogether. When Jonas asked, around, a translator simply shrugged. The wind's changing, he said quietly. The team was soon ordered out again, deeper into unfamiliar territory this time. A narrow canyon cut through the landscape ahead, offering limited visibility and too many hiding places. It would be their next route. That night, Jonas sat beside Tango near the edge of camp. The stars blinked above them. He scratched Tango's head slowly. I don't know what's coming, he said, but I'm glad it's you and me. Tango didn't move. He just leaned into Jonas's leg, eyes half closed, ears still twitching at every sound. Even beneath the silence of the desert, Tango was listening, always, and whatever waited beyond that canyon, he would hear it first. The canyon loomed ahead, like a giant scar across the land, narrow, rocky, and silent. Jagged cliffs lined both sides, offering shade but little comfort. To Jonas Wells, it felt more like a trap than a trail. Every instinct told him to be careful, but instincts didn't speak louder than orders. Captain Rowan Dyer stood at the edge of the path, arms crossed, staring into the shadows. We go slow, eyes up, ears open, he said. And if Tango moves, we move. Jonas adjusted his gear, his heart pounding a little harder than usual. This patrol felt different, tense, off. Even Tango, who was normally steady and alert, had been pacing more that morning, nose to the wind, tail stiff, eyes scanning constantly. They moved in single file. Jonas walked near the front with Tango, off-leash just a few feet ahead. The dog was focused, nose low, body tense. Every few steps he paused, sniffed the air, then continued. The heat was dry and biting, but Jonas barely noticed it. All he felt was the tight grip of worry settling in his chest. Behind him walked Reese Talon, a young soldier only a few months into his first tour. Reese was all wide eyes and nervous smiles, and he looked up to Jonas like a little brother. You really trust that dog, huh? He whispered. More than myself sometimes, Jonas said without turning. A few more steps into the canyon and the air changed. It got thicker, heavier. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Tango suddenly froze. Not the normal freeze, not the curious pause when something seemed unusual. This was different. His whole body locked, one paw raised, ears flat, tail straight out. He let out a sharp, short bark, not loud, but urgent. The kind of bark that said, "Danger is here." "Contact," Jonas shouted, instinct taking over. Before the echo faded, the cliffs above came alive with sound. Gunfire cracked through the canyon. Dust exploded around their boots. The team dove for cover behind boulders and the canyon walls. Bullets sprayed from above. An ambush, well-planned and well-timed. "Left ridge," Dyer barked into his radio. Returning fire. Flank left. But visibility was poor. The enemy had the high ground. Every move the squad made was pinned down by a hidden machine gun nest up on the ridge. The situation was bad. Too many shots, too little cover. Tango didn't hide. As the gunfire exploded, he darted toward a rocky outcrop and disappeared behind it. Jonas shouted after him, "Tango, no!" But the dog was gone, swallowed by the jagged terrain. Jonas's heart dropped into his stomach. He wanted to go after him, but orders were flying. Bullets whizzed past, and the team was fighting to stay alive. Then something strange happened. From the far side of the ridge came new sounds, shouting in a foreign language, quick and confused. The gunfire from the machine gun thinned out, shots less controlled, more frantic. A few moments later, Jonas caught sight of movement through the dust. Tango. He wasn't attacking blindly. He was circling. Using the rocks as cover, he had found a way up and around. His surprise appearance behind the enemy position had caused just enough confusion. The gunners turned, panicked by the sudden fierce dog charging them from the side. In that moment of hesitation, Jonas heard the command. "Now!" "Suppressing fire!" Dyer yelled. The team opened up, bullets slamming into the ridge as Jonas and two others moved in. They scrambled up the slope, hearts pounding, weapons ready. When they reached the top, they found Tango, standing over a disarmed enemy fighter, growling low and steady. The man sat frozen, hands raised. Two other attackers were fleeing, leaving. Behind their weapon and the broken machine gun mount, Jonas knelt beside Tango, heart still racing. "You found them, didn't you?" he whispered. Tango didn't answer, of course. He just looked at Jonas with calm eyes, his body still tense, but proud. The rest of the squad regrouped. The ambush had been broken. They cleared the rest of the canyon carefully, tension still high, but the worst had passed. And then another shout. "Medic!" Reese had been hit. A single shot to the side. He was down, breathing hard, in pain but alive. Jonas rushed over. But before he got there, Tango was already beside Reese, licking his face and letting out a low whimper. Lieutenant Linden, their medic, ran up with her kit. "He's okay, it missed anything vital," she said, working fast. Tango refused to move from Reese's side until she gave a nod. Then, carefully, he sat, still watching. That night back at base, they watched the helmet cam footage. The full story became clear. How Tango sensed the danger, how he broke away to flank the attackers, how he neutralized the biggest threat before the team even reached it. Captain Dyer stood in front of the group, holding a still frame from the footage. Tango mid-run, eyes locked forward, dust flying around him. "This dog didn't just save your lives," Dyer said. "He changed the outcome of that fight." No one argued. Jonas sat beside Tango that evening outside their tent. The stars were back, blinking quietly above them. He ran his fingers through the dog's fur, still a little dusty but warm. "You're something else," he said softly. Tango licked his hand and laid his head down on Jonas's foot, and in the quiet after the storm, there was peace. At least for tonight. The war didn't end with a bang. For Jonas Wells and Tango, it faded slowly, like the sun slipping below the horizon, one shadow at a time. After their final mission, the unit was pulled back to base. Their rotation was over. Paperwork followed, along with debriefs, handshakes, and words that couldn't begin to describe what they had seen. Jonas didn't talk much, he didn't need to. Tango, as always, stayed by his side, steady and silent. Tango was officially retiring. His body had taken a toll from the long months of deployment. Small scars beneath his fur, stiffness in his joints. Nothing serious, but enough for the military to decide his active service was complete. Jonas didn't hesitate. He filled out the forms, signed the adoption paperwork, and brought Tango home. Home was quiet. Too quiet at first. The little rental house sat at the edge of a sleepy town, with a small yard and a white fence that creaked in the wind. No gunfire, no radio chatter, no maps on the wall. The first few nights were hard. Jonas would wake from dreams soaked in sweat, the echoes of shouted commands still ringing in his ears. Tango, always nearby, would climb onto the bed and lay beside him, heavy and warm. He didn't whine, he didn't bark, he just stayed, and somehow, that made it better. Tango had his own struggles. Fireworks on New Year's Eve sent him hiding under the kitchen table. A backfiring truck once made him freeze mid-walk, ears pinned, tail low. But Jonas was patient. They understood each other in a way few could. Over time, a rhythm grew. Walks, in the morning. Nap in the sun. The slow sniff of flowers in the garden. Kids in the neighborhood learned Tango's name and came by to give him belly rubs. The once silent soldier had become a quiet local hero. The war dog who chased tennis balls like a puppy and helped old ladies carry groceries with Jonas. One of those neighbors, Mr. Langley, an old veteran with a cane and a lifetime of stories, took a special interest in Tango. "He's got the look," he'd say, nodding. "Knows things most people never will." Every Saturday, Jonas and Tango visited a nearby support center for veterans. It started small. Jonas didn't speak during the first session. He just sat with Tango while others shared stories. But after a few weeks, he opened up, told them about the canyon ambush, about the way Tango had charged up the ridge, about how, in that moment, he realized the dog beside him was more than just a partner. He was a lifeline. Other veterans began to look forward to their visits. One man, who hadn't spoken to anyone in months, found comfort simply petting Tango's head. Another woman said seeing the dog reminded her of her own service animal who'd passed away. Tango had a way of connecting without words. He didn't ask for anything, just offered presence. One day, Jonas received a letter. It was an invitation to a small community event honoring local heroes. Someone, maybe Lieutenant Linden, maybe Captain Dyer, had submitted Tango's story. The ceremony was simple. A few folding chairs, some speeches, a photo slideshow. But when Jonas walked up with Tango, the crowd stood and clapped. Tango, sitting by Jonas's side, wagged his tail once and looked up like he didn't understand the attention, but appreciated it anyway. That night, back at home, Jonas lit a fire in the old fireplace. The flames crackled softly. Tango lay curled on the rug, his eyes half closed, ears twitching at the sound of logs popping. Jonas sat beside him on the floor, one hand resting gently on his fur. "You know," he said quietly, "you saved more lives than anyone knows. You saved me." Tango didn't move, but there was peace in his breathing. A slow rhythm. The calm of a soldier who had done his duty and now, finally, could rest. As time passed, seasons changed. Tango grew older. His steps became slower, his naps longer. But his spirit never faded. He still perked up when Jonas grabbed his leash, still wagged his tail when kids shouted his name, still watched Jonas with those deep, knowing eyes. And when the days got shorter, when the winter air made his legs ache, Jonas made sure his bed was always close to the fire. They didn't need words. Their bond had gone far beyond that. One afternoon, a young woman knocked on Jonas's door. She held a notebook and wore a warm smile. "I'm writing a piece on military dogs," she said. "I heard about Tango, Can I hear his story?" Jonas nodded. He looked down at Tango, now dozing in the sunlight by the window. "Yeah," he said. "You'll want to sit down for this one." He told her everything, not just about the danger and the missions, but about the quiet moments, the healing, the way a dog without words had become a guide through the noise of war and the silence of what followed. As she left, she turned back. "You think he knows he's a hero?" Jonas smiled. "He doesn't need to. He just is." That evening, Tango lay with his head on Jonas's lap, eyes closed, breathing soft. The fire flickered. Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees. In the quiet, Jonas whispered, "You did good, buddy." And in that silence, nothing more needed to be said.